More than 10 years have passed since the disappearance of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon in the jungles of Panama. Although the two women were eventually found, they were unfortunately lifeless, and so much strange evidence was left behind that it remains a mystery. The question is, how did they disappear, and what caused their deaths? Were they murdered? Those questions are still unanswered, but let's get more familiar with the case. Kris was only 21 years old when the two women disappeared, while Lisanne was only 22. They both grew up in Amersfoort, Utrecht, Netherlands. As individuals, the two friends were quite different in character. Kris is very open, creative, and responsible. Conversely, Lisanne is an optimistic, intelligent, and passionate volleyball player with high aspirations. Both women have recently completed their studies in the Netherlands. Kris just finished a degree in sociocultural education with a specialization in art education at the University of Utrecht, while Lisanne graduated with a degree in applied psychology. It is known that Lisanne moved into a hostel in Amersfoort with Kris, and they worked together at a cafe called In Den Kleinen Hap. This move happened just a few weeks before they both left for Panama. Kris and Lisanne had been saving for 6 months beforehand, as they had already planned to travel to Panama. This was not just a vacation for sightseeing. Kris and Lisanne had a goal and hoped that by going to Panama, they could learn Spanish and do something meaningful for the locals, primarily volunteering for the local children. The two young women went to Panama with the money they saved up. Kris and Lisanne are known to have departed from Amsterdam Airport for Costa Rica. It is recorded that they arrived on March 15, 2014. From Costa Rica, they traveled to Bocas del Toro in Panama. Apart from spending time on the beach, they learned a little Spanish and enjoyed local food and drinks. They are known to have met two Dutchmen who were visiting the area. On March 29th, 2 weeks after they arrived in Panama, the two moved to Boquete, a town on the western side of the country. Kris and Lisanne had initially planned to teach local children at a school, but their travel agent later said they could not do the activities as planned. Kris and Lisanne eventually decided to stay with a local family in the Boquete area for a month, as they still wanted to teach local children there. On April 1st, 2014, just a few days after arriving in Boquete, the two received permission from the local family they were staying with to hike the El Pianista Trail. El Pianista is in the rainforest surrounding the Baru volcano, so they set off on a sunny morning. Kris and Lisanne planned to hike to the summit, about 8 kilometers from town. They took a taxi from a local family's house to the trailhead. According to the taxi driver who took them to the trailhead, the two women arrived midday, but this account was later deemed inconsistent with the evidence found on the ground. The El Pianista Trail runs from Chiriquí to the province of Bocas del Toro and has steep ups and downs that require a reasonably fit person to reach the summit in 2.5 to 3 hours. So if Kris and Lisanne were to make the round trip, it would take them 5 to 6 hours. Moreover, it is known that they did not carry many items that could hamper the journey. Kris and Lisanne only wore light clothing, a tank top, and shorts, and their backpacks contained only their passports, water bottles, digital cameras, money $80 and cell phones. The main risk that could hold them back was the trail itself. The area beyond the trail is known for its rugged, steep, and dangerous terrain. It gets even more dangerous during the rainy season, from April to October. Even the indigenous Ngobi tribe has to tread very carefully on the route Kris and Lisanne took during the rainy season. According to some sources, when Kris and Lisanne left, they took along a dog belonging to a local family where they were staying. But in the afternoon, the dog returned home without Kris or Lisanne. The family where they were staying did an initial search, but to no avail. The search was postponed due to darkness and resumed the next day. According to some information, Kris and Lisanne had made an appointment with a local guide for the hike. But it is known that Kris and Lisanne never came to see him. On the second day of the search, the local family, this time assisted by the local guide that Kris and Lisanne had contacted earlier, were already worried that something terrible had happened. However, even after dark, Kris and Lisanne were not found or given any news of their whereabouts. On April 3rd, their disappearance was finally reported to the authorities, who immediately conducted a sweep of the hiking area. A group of sniffer dogs were deployed, and police also used a helicopter to monitor the area from the air. The case caused quite a stir among the locals then, so they tried to help with the search. Unfortunately, the search yielded no immediate results, even after being conducted over the next 2 days. On April 6th, Kris and Lisanne's parents finally came to Panama with police, detectives, and even a Dutch sniffer dog unit to conduct a more extensive search, which lasted 10 days. The parents also offered a $30,000 reward for any information leading them to Kris and Lisanne's whereabouts. But nothing came of these efforts. The search remained fruitless, with no signs or clues as to the whereabouts or condition of the two friends, not even their possessions found on the hiking trail. Ten weeks later, on June 14, 2014, a local woman, referred to in some sources as a woman from the Ngobe indigenous tribe, arrived with Lisanne's blue backpack. She claimed to have found it on the riverbank near her village of Alto Romero in Bocas del Toro province. The village is in a very remote area and is difficult to reach on foot. It is even quite far from the hiking trail at about 8 kilometers, which might be an 8-hour walk under normal conditions. But the question is, what was the purpose even if Kris and Lisanne went there? Many people question that. The backpack that was handed over was examined, and inside were 2 pairs of sunglasses, $88 in cash, Lisanne's insurance card, a bottle of water, the digital camera they were carrying, 2 bras, and Lisanne and Kris' cell phones, all of which were found to be in good condition. Police immediately checked the phones and cameras, hoping to find clues to the 2 women's whereabouts. Their cell phones showed that about 6 hours into their hike, they had dialed 112, the international emergency number used in Panama, and 911, the national emergency number in Panama. The first emergency call attempt was made on Kris's iPhone 4 at 16:39. Shortly after that, an attempt was made to call Lisanne's Samsung Galaxy S3 at 16:51. But unfortunately, none of their calls connected due to the lack of signal in the area. In subsequent attempts, they were unsuccessful. On April 4th, it was discovered that Lisanne's phone finally ran out of battery at 5 a.m. and was never used again. Kris's iPhone was also not used to make calls, but would occasionally be turned on to search for a signal. Between April 5th and 11th, the iPhone was known to turn on several times, but was not accessed because there was no sign of unlocking the PIN code or entering the PIN code correctly. On April 11th, it was found that Kris's phone was turned on at 10:51 a.m. and turned off for the last time at 11:56 a.m., with 22% battery remaining. Over 100 photo files were inside the camera, all taken within 10 days of their disappearance. Some early photos show the 2 of them happy and enjoying their adventure in the wilderness. But the last few photos showed horrifying things. They didn't get out of the taxi at midday, as the driver who took them to the trailhead testified, as the trailhead photo was taken at 11 a.m. Kris and Lisanne also took a few selfies showing their happy faces on a sunny day on the hiking trail. Image code 508 is the last photo taken by them during the day, but according to the metadata, there are 2 versions of photo 508. The first version was taken 8 seconds after photo 507, and another version of photo 508 shows Kris looking back was taken 50 seconds after he crossed the river, after which no more daytime photos were made on April 1st. This indicates missing pictures, but unfortunately, experts have failed to recover the missing images. About 90 of the remaining photos were taken after 10 days of their disappearance, noting that 87 were taken on April 8th between 1 and 4 a.m. Most of the pictures were taken in dark conditions when it was raining. Some were taken with a few seconds lag, and some were taken with a lag of 15 minutes later. The shots are all clear, with no blurring, showing that they were taken deliberately and without pressure. The photos were taken when both had been in the forest for a week. Some assumed they were trying to use the camera as a light source in the pitch black, or perhaps to signal to rescuers or even scare away wild animals. However, analysis of the photos shows that most of them were taken under foliage, which is not an open place to attract attention. There is also a close-up photo showing the wound on the right side of Kris's head. Lisanne allegedly used the camera to hint that she had to leave Kris because of the injury. The rest of the photos are shots showing ravines and canyons, and there are also man-made structures that are most likely cable-stayed bridges. The police, who initially suspected that the bag had been washed away, became suspicious because the bag's condition when it was returned was excellent and dry despite weeks in the wild. Plus, the hiking area had received heavy rain for several weeks, resulting in the police suspecting that the objects in the bag had been deliberately placed at the location where they had been found. Fingerprinting and DNA testing found different fingerprints and DNA on the backpack, but unfortunately, there were no clues that could be seriously explored from these results. A check on Kris and Lisanne's cell phones showed that someone had tried to access Kris's iPhone, but kept getting the PIN wrong. Between April 7th and 10th, at least 77 attempts were made to access the phone. It was speculated that both may have been taken by someone else who tried to access the phone, or that Kris may have been unconscious, and Lisanne tried to access the phone to call for help. This led the police to sweep the area where the bag was found. They got help from a local guide and 6 Ngobi natives. Initially, they found the jean shorts Kris had used. The pants were found a few kilometers from the backpack's location. The position of the pants was on a rock across the Coulebre River. According to some sources, it was claimed that the pants were neatly folded and the zipper was closed, but several published photos refuted this claim. There were no new clues beyond that, but the search continued. 2 months later, news broke that a pelvic bone and a shoe with a foot inside had been found. The discovery site was behind a tree in the vicinity of Alto Romero, the location close to where the backpack was found. The search expanded and intensified in the area until eventually at least 33 widely scattered bones were found along the same river. Police immediately tested DNA to confirm whether the bones belonged to both or someone else. Sometime after the testing, the DNA results confirmed that the bones belonged to them. The shoe and foot inside were identified as Lisanne, while the pelvic bone belonged to Kris. Lisanne's foot appeared to be intact inside the boot, but the sole bone was broken. The cut seemed clean with no blood on it, and there were no signs of cuts, lacerations, gunshots, bites, or scratches. The rest of the bones were not found, and even those found were in an unnatural condition. Some were found scattered, sometimes even a kilometer apart from one another. However, what's even stranger are the bones of them, which have significant differences. Lisanne's bones showed signs of natural decomposition with a bit of skin attached, but Kris's bones were found in a pure white color, as if they had been deliberately bleached or cleaned beforehand. A Panamanian forensic anthropologist later said there were no signs of scratches on their bones. In addition, it was also discovered that the bone marrow in the thigh and tibia of Lisanne's bones proved to be dry and undecayed. The bone marrow itself was intact and unchanged, leading forensic experts to think the pieces may have been manipulated by someone else. Other oddities remain and raise even bigger questions, as the bones were identified as belonging to 3 different people, leading to all sorts of creepy speculations, such as there were other victims at the site. There had been murders, rapes, organ sales, and even cannibalism. However, the speculation remains unconfirmed because there is no solid evidence. To date, neither the Dutch nor Panamanian forensic teams have been able to determine the exact cause of death of the 2 girls. They have different beliefs, with the Dutch forensic team concluding that their deaths were the result of accidents and injuries. Still, the Panamanian forensic team believes that there are indications of criminal acts in their deaths. Initially, the case was officially declared a murder and felony, but in November 2014, the case was closed, with the police telling the public that their deaths were accidental. They died from injuries that could have been caused by being swept away by the river. This statement was based on the assumption that one of them was injured and swept away, and the other tried to help but was injured as well and could not save themselves. Although this has become the official cause of death, Many people do not believe it and believe that the cause of death is more complicated than that. So the case of their disappearance and death is still considered a mystery.